Okay, now I'm going to begin to disassemble the manual hubs and prepare them to put on the Trooper. Now I've been looking around in the box and it says to install these with a gasket. There's no gasket. I have no gasket in my box. There's none anywhere. I don't know if I'm supposed to have a gasket somewhere or if this doesn't require a gasket. I wonder if this is the gasket that they're talking about. See, that looks like that has a gasket right here. Okay. Maybe this side does not need a gasket. It's kind of not what the directions said though. The directions said that to use one. I think what I'm going to do is take just a little bit of silicone and just put a little light coat on the outside of this just to kind of help seal the dirt and moisture, all of that out of here, because that's going to be open to the elements. Alright, we are back at the vehicle and I just put a slight bit of grease onto my axle shaft per the instructions, and I'm going to take a little bit of my favorite ultra black and put the tiniest bead I possibly can around this entire circumference here, just to try to help keep the water out of it. I do not want too much, but I do want a good seal. Alright, I'm going to put just a little bit of thread locker on these. And you know, I'm really just not sure about this whole thing. I mean, I don't see that any of this is very watertight. I mean, even like these bolts with these lock washers on them, there's no way that water's not going to get through that, you know? Maybe it doesn't matter. They don't seem that concerned about it. All right, next we're going to put our snap ring back in place. All right, here goes our snap ring. And you want to make sure that this thing snaps all the way down into the groove. Okay, yeah, it's in. It is in place. Okay, that seems to be right. Right there. We'll get this first one started. All right. That should freewheel. All right. And that should not. Look at that. All right. And that should freewheel. And that's installed. And I now have manual locking hubs on the passenger side. All right. Before we can put the wheel back on, the next order of business is that I need to remove this center cap off of the front wheels. So I'm going to pull these 3 bolts out and we're going to get this off and the wheel will be ready to put back on. I may need to touch up around here with some black paint. I just don't know yet. So let's take a look and see. Oh, look what I got in the mail last night, guys, when I got finished with the recording yesterday. I'm now officially a tool snob. I love this thing, man. I never really felt what a snap-on wrench feels like, but you can definitely tell quality whenever you touch it. It's just different. So yeah, this will be my first time I've ever used it. Very nice. Yeah, I may need to touch that up with a little bit of black here. So now this whole piece here, I believe, is going to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand this down a little bit. I'm just going to touch this front wheel up just a little, just so it looks a little better than that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this off with a little bit of prep spray. If you're going to paint anything, doing this prep spray is one of the most important things. It removes anything that's going to make your paint not adhere to the surface. And so you just hit that a little bit before you touch it up, and it's going to make your paint stick that much better. There we go. Now I'm going to sand that down just a little bit. And I'm not going to go too overboard with the sanding. I'm just going to scuff up the surface just a little bit with this scuff pad. I mean, we're not making a show car here, you know, we're making an off-road truck that's meant to go out and beat up a little bit, so it doesn't have to be absolutely show quality. All right, that's all it needed. Just a little touch up here and there. I'm just going to give that a few minutes to dry. Okay, the next step is to reassemble our brake caliper. Now, we're going to be putting new pads and new hardware. So, in order to prepare this, I'm going to go ahead and pop this old hardware off. And I'm going to just clean up underneath where this hardware goes so that we have a nice mounting surface to begin with. And I'm also going to make sure that we clean out, and I'm going to inspect down in these slider openings to make sure that there's no debris down in there. I may take some brake clean and just spray those out. All right, so yes, there is quite a bit of debris and trash down in these holes for your slider pins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brake clean and we're just going to give them a little washout. And And now let's see what it looks like in there. Whoa. Oh yeah. Very nice, very nice. And next, I'm just going to give that a little blowout here. And that is pretty spotless now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper and I'm going to clean up these surfaces where, number one, the brake pad rides, and number two, the hardware sits. Now, if you guys are in an area of the country that gets a lot of rust, like anywhere in the Rust Belt, you know, the Northeast, you may actually have to take a file and file this with a flat file. We don't get a lot of rust here. You know, we don't use salt on our streets or anything. In fact, we hardly ever get snow. It might get freezing maybe once a year here. We hardly ever get any cold weather. South Louisiana. And you can see how much cleaner that is there. And we'll hit these mounting surfaces just a little bit with the brake clean. And I'm going to go ahead now and put the caliper bracket back on. And we're going to put the top caliper bolt back in. Just trying to get everything lined up there. And once again, guys, these are 22s. So here is Alright, so I ordered these brake pads and hardware literally like 6 months ago. So the problem here is they have different part numbers. One's a left and one's a right. Okay, let's see. These look absolutely identical, top and bottom. Okay, I really don't think it matters. I think they're identical. So we're just going to leave it at that. And see if we can get these to pop in there. There's one. And there's two. Very nice. Okay guys, we are back. My memory card had filled up and I didn't realize it, so I missed one step. But all I did was took a little bit of lubricant, a little bit of anti-seize, and went around the location of the brake pads that they said to go. and then slid the brake pads in place. Not a big deal. On the lid right here of the brake pads, it has the locations of where it wants you to put the anti-seize. I'm going to be using this brake kit to compress my caliper just a little bit. And I'm looking for the appropriate one. And that's going to be it right there. There we go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put just a little bit of anti-seize right on these slide pins. Not too much. Now what you have to do on this little rubber gasket is you almost have to burp the air out of it and then let it slip up onto the ridge right there where it goes. Just like that. So you want to make sure you get all the air out of it. In case I forget to tell y'all, when you get back in your vehicle, make sure that you pump your brakes a few times, because you will not have brakes. All right. There we go. There's one. And there's two. And I'm going to double check them. Okay. And that seems to be in great shape there. Now I am, though, going to do one more little cleanup the best I can on the caliper here. So I'm just going to spray just a little bit of brake clean. And just finish up what I can there. And that, my friends, is a completed job. And I'm just double checking everything in my mind. I got these torqued to 76. I got these plenty tight. These are snug down. Alright. Now if I turn this into 4x4, it locks us in. And 4x2 is not. Mission accomplished. My stock wheel is not wanting to fit over the edge right here. Yeah, the radius in my wheel is not fitting over this piece. Now these lock washers do stick out a little bit, but that seemed pretty tight. That doesn't make sense because it fits over this. And that's not designed to be any wider. I think my best option is to just radius this wheel out just a little bit. Just take my grinder and just kind of smooth that down. Because listen, there's 2 or 3 coats of primer and paint on here, and that, you know, that makes a difference. So I think I'm going to get my wheel out and just touch up around that circumference a little, and I think it'll go right on there. So that helped a little bit, but I'm going to need to take it out some more. Well, let me try this one on there and see how it does. I'm going to let that aluminum dust settle, and then I'll be right back. Aluminum is super toxic for you, and you always want to wear a face mask whenever you're cutting it or shaving it or grinding on it. And then you want to let that dust settle before you come back out and take your face mask off. All right, let's see what we've got now. You know, there's something else I thought of while I was doing that too. That means I've got to do all 4 wheels and my spare like this. See what I'm thinking, guys? If those socket cap screws are smaller on the other ones, I may just use those. It's just such BS why they would do it like that. Come on, super winch. See, those don't stick out of that radius. I think that does have a smaller profile. A little bit. Ever so slightly different. I don't know if that shows up for y'all, but they are just ever so slightly fatter towards the back. So let's try it with these. And see what we got. With no lock washers and just a little extra Loctite. Much better. Much better. So if you want to go ahead and torque your lug nuts without having to put your tire all the way on the ground, because I still have the other side to do, but I'm ready to get this side finished. It's real simple. You just take a chop and stick it under your wheel, and now I can torque my lug nuts. And the final check is that we want to check that play that we had and see if that's gone. And it 100% is gone. Success. Well, that does it, guys. We're finished up with this half of the Trooper. We've got new bearings, rotors, brake pads, and now we can lock that manual and we can four-wheel drive, or we can unlock it and reduce wear and tear on the front of our four-wheel drive system. And you know, we had a little problem getting the wheel back on. Sometimes when you do a big job like this, things don't always fit the way that you think. You have to improvise. You have to do whatever you think is best to get it to work the best you possibly can. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we've got a great group of guys here on this channel that watch almost every single week. And give me a thumbs up, because you know it means a lot to me. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in the next video. All right.
What he said.
All right, let's take a look at these bearings and races that we pulled out of the Trooper. Now you can see on the inside of this race here where we have quite a bit of wear, even some grooves and some ridges. You see here. And then when we look at the smaller one, you can see it's not as bad. And I don't think that's where my noise was coming from. See there? I think my noise was actually coming from this one. And you can see how that has grooves and ridges in it. And then whenever we look at the rollers on the big one, you can see the same thing. You can see how it has some grooves. A few of them even has some pitting in there. See the pitting in that one right there? So I think we made a good call by changing those out after cleaning them up and actually looking at them. You can see that they had problems. So good call.